Mental health is more than just a buzzword, and it's been showing up, and we've been talking about it a lot more. And so my collaborative and those of us here today, we're here to put that representative face to say, hey, you do have mental health professionals that look like you if that's something that you're looking for. And so we just want to make a presence, let our community know we're here. We're here to support you, and when you come see us, it's a place where therapy looks like you.
That was Candice Bailey and Rossina Shroeer-Santiago. And this is the Voice of Montbello podcast. Guys, we're here at Stanley's Marketplace in Denver, Colorado, and we're here with Rossina and Candice. Nice to meet you guys.
Hi.
This event, you guys organized?
I actually did. I co-organized it with Latoya Petty. So we are the coordinators. I'm the logistics coordinator, and she is the strategic coordinator, I suppose. And so we've been organizing this as a collaborative for more than 2 years.
Wow.
With over 100 organizations at the table. So this was a very intentional summit today. It started out as a one-day conference. And we knew one day would never be enough to capsize what we're talking.
So y'all did 3 days, right?
Right. So we're doing 3 days, and we'll be doing it annually. And next year, we will also add a youth component.
Nice. So what inspired you guys to do this? What came to mind?
Oh, gosh. So interestingly, I was thinking about this today on my way here. So in a few days, it'll be the 2-year anniversary for me being a lead organizer for the Elijah McClain incident, his murder by Aurora Police Department. And in a few days, it will be the 2-year anniversary of us surrounding the Aurora Police Station. I thought about that very seriously on my way here this morning because I thought about the trauma that came with all of that our community experienced, the ways in which that trauma has not ended, and the ways in which we are still actively and collectively dealing with just that trauma from just a couple years ago. And then I thought a little bit deeper, and I said, think a little bit deeper, because there has been trauma on 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 trauma. Right. And so for us, it was really important that everything that is done is for us, by us, not by someone else. And so for us, it was important that we had a collective voice that came together and addressed the things that we know are actively happening and not called historical any longer. We must deal as a unit. And so we were very intentional in making sure that this was not an individual plight, but a unified voice.
Wow. So that's a good reason. That's a great reason. I couldn't think of something better to do this, right? But what made you join on this active, not historical?
So I'm the founder of the Therapist of Color Collaborative. And so a big part of what we're here to do is just that, right? Like, as we're talking about these very sensitive subjects, and we're talking about our communal collective trauma that we've been experiencing just in light of all the events that are happening, mental health is more than just a buzzword, and it's been showing up, and we've been talking about it a lot more. And so my collaborative and those of us here today, we're here to put that representative face to say, hey, you do have mental health professionals that look like you if that's something that you're looking for. And so we just want to make a presence, let our community know we're here. We're here to support you, and when you come see us, it's a place where therapy looks like you.
What would you say to those who think therapy is a waste of time, maybe even sometimes a waste of money, or they just think that it's not necessary? It makes them look weak, so they don't want to go.
Absolutely. So I like to say that vulnerability is cousins to courage. And I say it's cousins to courage because in order to be vulnerable, it takes a great act of personal courage to sit in front of somebody and do that. And so when you sit in a space where somebody looks like you and you don't have to explain your story anymore, what's bringing you in, we are modeling and normalizing and changing the way that we, like as folks of color, talk about mental health. And we're saying, you know what? being weak was something that we used to say. Being vulnerable is today's version of strength. And so we're here to support people. And if people are worried about the cost, we have grant funded programs, we have victim service programs, we have income based affordable counseling programs, we even take insurances, and we're moving into Medicaid. So people don't have to worry about what it's going to take to get into therapy. They just have to be willing to come and sit down and talk about it. That's all that we ask them to be willing to do. Come in, sit down, and let's talk about it, and we'll see. And if we're a fit, we're going to be supportive and help somebody see what the possibilities of healing are. But we don't have to sit in a space anymore where we're so afraid to talk about the things, because therapy is a space where it's just your therapist is your partner on your journey to try to change the story of what's been disrupting you on the inside. And so we're here to change all of that.
I mean, it's a very moving thing that you guys are doing here. I think a lot of people are gonna walk out of this and they're gonna feel better. They're gonna feel like a big weight has been released from their shoulders. I think. Well, I assume many people here have dealt with trauma, and well, this is just gonna help them a lot. We're making change.
Yeah.
That's
Absolutely.
that's what it is.
And I think to echo some of what Rossina was saying, the reason that we brought the Color Collaborative into the room is because there's this thing called cultural congruence. That means that the individual looks like you go together. You're not sitting in front of a white woman and bearing your soul and hoping that she understands and she's not judging you, right? And so for us, cultural congruence is something that needs to be transmitted across our nation and our globe. I don't want to go talk to someone who does not look like me and who cannot understand my plight, my feelings, my emotion, my struggle. And we often find that, especially in our local Denver metro community, that we are often just facing what historically has been a white Western model and modality for us to heal. And in this space, we do not ascribe to that. We have healers of every kind in this space, and we want to change the narrative of what people believe therapy really is. We want you to know that there is someone who looks like you, who will provide services to you, and who will listen to you without judgment, without colonization as the lens. And so that was one of the main things that we really wanted to provide in this space, is the opportunity for healing, whatever that may look like for the individual.
And I think to just build on what you're saying, Candice, the other part of why the collaborative for me personally is so important is, one, our community needs to see us. But I think as professionals, like the mental health profession, as far as people of color, we only are about 15 to 17% nationwide. So I think it's super important that, our young folks like you, our kids coming up, see professional pathways and can see themselves in this field. Because I know growing up, much like you were saying, I was told, like, what happens in the house stays in the house. We don't talk about our problems. We don't do this thing. We don't share anything outside of our home. So coming into this profession and seeing myself represented here is what made it possible for me. So it's kind of twofold. I have to show my community that we're here and we're delivering that representative care, but also how do we forge pathways through our community that show that professions like mental health are a good profession and a possible profession, because we have a responsibility to bring this back to our community, because there's not near enough of us clinicians of color to do this work.
Have you guys ever needed to go to therapy? Like when
Probably today. Every day. I think that when you think about the term therapy, I think that there is a stigma that is attached to it, because historically we have been incarcerated, we've been murdered for talking about what is happening with us trauma wise. And so I always like to dig into that and talk about the stigma that is attached with therapy and mental health help, because in our community it has been weaponized. It was reasons that our children were taken, reasons that we are incarcerated, and even murdered. And I really wanted to address that within our community, by our community, versus us ending up with some diagnosis, some prescription that doesn't go with it, and then poof, you're healed. That is absolutely not true. And so, when it comes to mental health, there's a stigma that exists in communities of color, but there's also a feeling of fear in addressing that because historically and currently, we are still being oppressed under the lens of mental health.
And you think there's other forms of therapy than talking to someone?
Absolutely. There are so many modalities of therapy. When we're talking therapeutic, the term therapy is about feeling better. It's funny. I was in a staffing one time with a youth, and there was a translator there who was speaking Eritrean, and they didn't have a word that translated to therapy. And it was very interesting to sit in that space and listen to therapists attempt to define what therapy was to someone who doesn't have a word for that in their vocabulary. And here's the better part about that. In all the languages in the world, there are very few that have a translatable word for the word therapy.
Wow. I did not know that. I guess that just shows how much more we need therapy around the world, not just here in Colorado and here in the marketplace. Um, but yeah,
Therapy is not just like one, it's not just talk therapy. You know, we have ecotherapy where you can get out in the environment. We have music therapy where you're using music. I mean, we have art therapy. I mean, even this is a form of therapy, right? Like if you find healing and you feel good doing it, I mean, there are lots of things that can be therapeutic. So, you know, talking is just kind of one way, but the modalities that we do, I mean, we have lots of tricks up our sleeves. Like I say, you know, like say humanistically, we make shift happen in therapy, and it's working with the human condition and how do we help people feel better and join them on their journey. And so it's whatever the person needs. And we really try to make sure we're meeting, like, I have a lot of veteran clients because I'm a veteran myself.
oh,
And so we're able to talk things like from the military, and I leverage like what we did in the military and how we bring it forward today and how we can transform our military experience into something healthy, right? Because there's lots of things we got from our time in the military. So that's just like one example, right?
yeah. How was your time in the military?
You know, my time in the military was, I look back at it, it's like it's both. And I had a really great experience in the military in terms of like my brothers and sisters in arms are still my brothers and sisters today. I served from 96 to 2003. And I got out of the military right at the time when 9/11 happened and we were deploying to Iraq. So I did one tour down in Iraq when the war started and came back, thankfully. And so, like, my time in the military, there was nothing like it. I mean, there's discipline, there's morale, there's camaraderie. I mean, there are just skills that I got from the military that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. And I got a chance to leverage a lot of skills that I get to bring forward with me today. And so part of the reason I became a therapist is because I wanted to serve my brothers and sisters in arms, because there are not a lot of therapists who really understand what the military is. And the VA itself is just a very white system. And so it doesn't have clinicians that look like me. They literally have one going on two clinicians that can provide therapy to all the veterans here in Colorado. And so I was very intentional about getting us like into the VA so that veterans could get access to care from therapists who look like them. So yeah, the military was great, and I'm really grateful for the time that I had.
Well, it was nice talking to you guys. I
Yes.
really appreciate you guys spending your time here and
you,
talking
Yara.
to you guys.
Thank you both for being here today. I really appreciate it. And a big shout out to you guys for doing our live stream. Your expertise is wonderful, and we love your faces in the place. Thank you
Absolutely.
to everyone who is on virtually. We're so happy that you could join us and see what is happening in this space. Thank you very much. We're honored to be here and to be able to provide this space for everyone.
Come
Yep.
get you some healing, y'all.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for listening to the Voice of Montbello podcast from the Active Collective Trauma Community Summit. To support our work and hear more youth-led community-based content, subscribe to our podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. Also, follow us on social media at Confluence Media Center. This has been a Confluence Media production.